Hello, dear students. I hope that all is well and that you are excited as I am to start the new school year. Now, I know that the setup for this school year is very different from the ones that we had before, but do not worry because we are in this together. Let me walk you through the subject so that you would have an idea about the lessons and what we will be discussing for the upcoming school year. Now, before any of that, before the topics and all of that, okay, let me first introduce myself and the subject itself, of course. So, my name is Miss Michelle Maceros, and I will be, or I am, your contemporary issues teacher for the school year 2021 to 2022. Now, I'm not sure. I don't know if that's good news or bad news for you, but child, good luck. Good luck. Okay. Now, kidding aside, let's take a look at the subject itself. Before taking contemporary issues, or as I would like to call it, I call it CI, you should have taken Asian history, world history, economics, and then, of course, contemporary issues. So this simply means that CI belongs to the same area as these three other subjects, which in totality or in summary, all of them belong to the social science area. The subject in itself is already 5 years in the curriculum, so it's already 5 years old. We are one of the first schools to implement CI, and this means that CI is being implemented even before the whole Philippines started to have CI as part of their subject, or as one of their grade 10 subjects. Now, let's take a look at the subject itself. So for this school year, we have divided CI into four different clusters. So there's environment issues, economic issues, political issues, and of course, sorry, civil rights. Okay, so there. So those are the four different clusters that we will be discussing. Okay, now let's take a look at the first cluster or the first quarter. So for the first quarter, we will be discussing about the introduction to contemporary issues, followed by environment issues and climate change, and of course, natural disasters and disaster risk mitigation. Now for the second quarter, which is all about economic issues, you will be discussing about unemployment, globalization, and sustainable development. For the third quarter, that would be migration, territorial and border issues, political dynasties, and of course, graft and corruption. And for the last quarter, we will be discussing about civil rights, which would include human rights, education, gender, and civics. Now, these are the other details of the subject. Okay, so that's my name there. Okay, Miss Michelle Maceros over here, very, very top. Okay, and then of course that's my email address and my response schedule. The best way to keep in touch with me would be through MS Teams, but of course, if you would want to have a more formal and official way of communication, you can always email me, especially for your parents. Your parents can email me if they have any questions or clarifications that they'd like me to discuss with them. Okay, now we move on to the next slide. Now, the question is, what will you need? So you have here 4 items. So, of course, your notebook. Now, mind you, your formal social science notebook would do. I have no issues if you're going to use your old notebooks. In fact, I encourage you to do so because there are some topics in contemporary issues that we will have to revisit. That we will have to revisit, or that we will be discussing, and these are some of the topics that you have already discussed in your other social science subjects, such as Asian history, world history, and of course, economics. Now, pen, that's another thing. Highlighters, okay, why? Because there's a lot of reading in contemporary issues, and of course, the book itself, you would see here at the top, about how the book looks like. So this is the book that you will be using for the school year. Speaking of the book itself, don't worry, we will maximize your contemporary issues book. Okay, if you have friends in the higher year levels who have experienced discussing or yeah before the pre-pandemic, okay, they would tell you that the contemporary issues book is one of the books that they utilized and maximized for the whole school year. Okay, now let's move on to the next slide. Okay, so these are the applications that we will be using. Sorry, just okay there. So Slido, YouTube, Padlet, Office Lens, Flipgrid, Kahoot, Teams, and of course Mentimeter. Okay, just take note of them. Okay, next. Now, what are our house rules? First and foremost, please come prepared. So if I ask you to make sure that you read something or watch something and I've given you the time to do so before we start classes, make sure that you do it. Okay, that's very important. I cannot emphasize that any harder or any longer. Or there, that's it. Just emphasize. Okay. Of course, turn on your camera. This is something that has been discussed during the parents' orientation that you are required to turn on your cameras. Use the raise hand icon should you want to express your thoughts. And of course, you have to wait to be recognized by the teacher, which is me, before you unmute yourself from the microphone and share your thoughts. And of course, turn on. Oh, this is what I was talking about. Turn on your microphone when called to share. Okay. What else? You may type your questions in the chat box if you're too shy to discuss it in front of your classmates, or if you're having technical difficulties and you can't seem to unmute yourself, then feel free to use the chat box. And then, of course, avoid eating while in class. It can be very distracting for your classmates. Okay? But of course, if you need to, because of health reasons and medical purposes, please inform me ahead of time and we'll discuss how you're going to do that. Position yourself in a comfortable but proper sitting position. Of course, I don't want you sleeping in my class. I don't want any of that. But then, of course, I'd also like you to be seated properly, not in a very uncomfortable space. Also, it would be very helpful for you if you try to keep yourself in space that's conducive and quiet. Okay? So that if, for example, I need to call on you because, for recitation purposes, and you unmute yourself, you don't have any background noise. Oh, speaking of background noise, I have posted about Crisp, which is a noise canceling application, and it's very good. It's something that I would recommend you using. So I have uploaded it. Yeah, I have posted the link in our channel, so please click on that and download the application itself. Okay. Next. Okay, so the frequently asked questions. First and foremost, how or where do we submit our work? The answer is give an activity sheet. So usually I give out activity sheets for you to answer. And then for individual works, you would be uploading or answering them using the assignment tab in Teams. Otherwise, unless I instruct you otherwise. Okay, now for group works, okay, it's also the same for group work designated class notebook in Teams, unless again instructed otherwise. Okay. And then when are we considered absent? So there are two instances for when you are considered absent. Well, of course, the first one is when you're not in session. That's a given. But the second one is if you were called 3 times for recitation, but you are unresponsive, then you are considered as absent. Okay, so especially if your camera is off or you're not in front of your camera, I would most definitely assume that you're not in class while we are having the session ongoing. Okay. What should I do if I were to be absent? So let's just say, for example, that you are going to be absent in my class and you know that you're going to be absent in advance. So please, 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 please send me a message through Teams or email me about it. It would be better if I would get a letter from your parents signed with their signature, informing me that you would not make it in my class. That would be better. Okay. And then what else? So, how do we prepare for class? Well, first and foremost, I've mentioned this earlier. If I give you reading materials, make sure that you read them. If I give you something to watch, make sure you watch it during the time that I give you. And of course, this is something that's highly encouraged. Do your own research about certain topics. So if I give you a specific topic, whether or not you're interested with it, it would be advisable if you do additional research so that, when we discuss in class, it would be richer and a lot more fun for everyone. And, you learn more, learn a lot of things about the specific topic. Okay. And with that, let me end my discussion or my introduction with a quote from Aaron Duff. Authentic learning, there's supposed to be the word learning there. Authentic learning is not discovered in textbooks, but rather at the crossroads of contemporary societal issues and students' passion. And speaking of passion and students, I look forward to meeting all of you and to going through the school year with you. So, with that, my dear students, I bid you goodbye and thank you. And I hope to see you later in class for our first day. So, bye and see you in a bit.